Hello everyone and welcome back to Vet Chats, where we help veterans share their awesome stories and make the veteran community a better place. I hope you'll stay tuned to see how this generation is continuing their service. Also, Vet Chats is now available on Rooster Across America Radio. Will be played Mondays at 9 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. They have a ton of great veteran content that I know you'll appreciate. You can find them at their website, iHeartRadio, or the Odyssey app. Also, the Veteran Workbook is now available. The best way to find it is through the link in my bio. So be sure to check that out and leave me a review. I would just really appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Whoa. I think this is like the most we've had on a live off the bat in a long time. Hey, everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. It was nice. We had some cool weather. You may notice I'm wearing a flannel. Yes, I'm really excited about that. So tonight we have a awesome guest as always. And I see he's on the request. So we have Grant of Dash Legacy on tonight. And let's get him on. Let's just get right into it. Oh, we already got some good questions. Hopefully I can fit that in somehow. I see it. I am not from Portland. Grant. Hey, Grant. How we doing?
Hey, good, Jana. How are you?
I'm doing great. How was your weekend?
It was really good. My wife and I, we celebrated our 16-year anniversary on Friday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. It was good. And we do the traditional gifts. So this year was wax. So if you follow her, you'll see I did some custom crayon artwork. It was pretty fun out here in the shed/studio. And then, we just kind of hung out this weekend, did the normal stuff, went to church this morning, got some workouts in, hung out with the kids. Pretty standard weekend.
That is wonderful. And again, congratulations. That is really a blessing.
Yeah,
That's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, I swear, me and my husband were just talking. We were like, is this the longest day ever? I can't believe it's still Sunday, because it was just one of those days where we got up and we tried to get way too much stuff done. But as always, I feel recharged when I have these conversations. So I appreciate you being here tonight and excited to talk more about you. So let's get started. Let's go back a little ways. How did you end up in the Army?
That's a question I get a lot, especially nowadays from some of the younger generation. I was essentially raised by a single mom. I mean, my dad was definitely in the picture, but for all intents and purposes, my mom would just grind away and work and work and work. And what that ended up leading to later was we had a good bond and a lot of trust. And when I was like junior, senior in high school, I was kind of floundering quite a bit, not really getting into serious trouble, but just getting kind of on the outskirts of trouble. Like, I could still join the military. So as the vets know, it wasn't anything too catastrophic. And one thing led to another. Both my father and my grandfather were in the military, and others on my mom's side were in the military. So the military was kind of always there, but never really talked about. And it just got to a crossroads where I look back and I didn't want all of my mom's hard work and all the late nights of her working 2 jobs and all these things. I just felt like I was going down a path that maybe wasn't going to quite be so successful. And in my head, I thought maybe I would go to college and kind of party and all that. Again, I just realized that maybe that wasn't quite the path for me. So I did like any other 17-year-old would do, and go down to the recruiting station and, talk to a recruiter and get signed up and get ready to go. So I joined at 17, way back in 1997. Both my parents signed me in. And that same year, I graduated graduated high school in June, and then August of '97, I left for basic training. So that's kind of in a nutshell, just normal, not doing great, somehow, by the grace of God, made the right decision. And here we are, 26 years later.
Yes, yes. And speaking of making your parents proud, I noticed a comment. It says, "Hey Dad, just wanted to let you know that I am on and I'm very proud for all of the accomplishments you have done over the years, and I love you." That is so awesome.
Oh yeah, thanks. That's my daughter.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you. I appreciate
your
it. She's,
daughter. I'm
yeah,
sorry. It said Tony and Christina. I
yeah,
apologize.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's my that's my daughter and her boyfriend.
Oh, that is incredible. So you were off, and were you like, I'm gonna take any job in the army, or did you have any sort of vision for that?
Well, that's another great question, Jenna. So my father was an infantry officer in the Vietnam era and was airborne and did all those things. So I kind of thought initially, my initial sign up contract, I had signed up on the enlisted side for, infantry with airborne. I played basketball in high school a lot, and I had hurt my knees. And I realized that maybe, jumping out of planes was not the best. And I was in very, very, very average shape back then. It was definitely, pretty run of the mill. So I went down to the recruiter and I said, "Hey, I've got some bad knees, and I don't know if jumping out of a plane is going to be the best for me." And he guided me to my first MOS, which was a generator mechanic. Believe it or not, a lot of people that meet me now are kind of surprised based on, how I am and how I carry myself, that I was a maintenance guy. But
Mm.
I was, because he sold me. He said, "Hey man, this job can go anywhere in the Army." And he was true. He was being accurate. And he lured me in there with, and this guy was a great guy, Staff Sergeant Robert Brown. I'm sure he's well retired by now. But my first duty station was Germany. I got, I was a generator mechanic. I did all that. And I got to be assigned to a bunch of different units before I switched over to military police, well, which I did in 2005.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, because I was just thinking that's kind of hard to sell army bases. I mean, Navy's easy because you're going to be in, even Norfolk, at least you're on the coast. It's like a kind of a destination, or you're going to be in San Diego. But Army, it's like you're going to be in Nebraska. Like, but that was really cool that your first duty station was over in Germany, especially being so young. So what was that like being so young in a foreign country?
Well, I didn't really, I was petrified of my mom in high school. So I partied a little bit, but, my mom kept it pretty tight. And so of course I partied, I got in trouble. But when I got to Germany, needless to say, I was doing everything I could to live the Army values, and I was getting after it in the unit. The unit was an amazing unit. It was an air defense Patriot missile unit. Um, and this was post Gulf War. So the Patriot missiles had been tested in the Gulf War, but now there was new versions out, and this was the kind of unit that was training and doing drills. And I say that because when I got there, the op tempo was very high, and we did a lot of stuff. So basically, we did tons of training, tons of field time, couple deployments, and then anytime I wasn't doing that, I was partaking in what I like to refer to now as the German nightlife. Going to bars, going to clubs, doing all those things responsibly. I never got in any trouble, but I was doing my best to drink up the town and just really really party and just have that experience and travel and learn how to snowboard and see some of the sights. So yeah, I see someone on here. The nightlife was amazing. Yeah. Just for a little more context, I was stationed in Ansbach, which is down in Bavaria. So not too far from, Nuremberg, Würzburg. Munich was a few hours away. Austria was a little bit away. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth in doing those things. And I really traveled around and had a great time.
Yes. What was your experience like with the transportation, like the German trains, traveling all
The
the
German,
like?
yeah, when I was there, this is going to kind of date myself a little bit. The euro wasn't a thing yet, right? It
Oh
was
yeah.
Deutschmarks, yeah, Deutschmarks, and then the legal drinking age was 18. Did I ever get JP. No, man, I didn't.
Hey, knock on wood, it's never too late.
Yeah. I hope that if I do now, it'll be way worse than just some paper, right?
Oh, yeah.
At my position now, yeah. Before the Deutschmark, before the Euro is Deutschmark. So I got really lucky. One of my roommates was dating and then later married a German who lived in a town called Rothenburg ODT, which stood for Eau de Tauber, over the bridge. And because of her, we were able to navigate around quite a bit. She hung out with all of us, so I didn't really have a lot of pain and issues getting around, even not, just speaking the language a tiny bit from the class you learn when you get there. We didn't have a lot of issues, and we all like to snowboard and do all that. So we just rode around with her, and she navigated us around, and it was easy. It was easy for us anyway.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. I got to go to Germany back in May, and I knew a local. She was a foreign exchange student that we had in America when I was in high school. So it was pretty cool to know someone who knew how to get on and off the trains and the subway systems. So it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of the signage and things, and, there's Google Voice and Google Chat. There's a lot of things now that you can navigate around. But yeah, I didn't have, that part was no issue for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology really has changed. I could even take a picture of a menu and it would translate everything for me, like on the pictures. It's really easy. So did that first duty station spoil you for the rest of your career, or what was your
well,
next
it's funny, Jenna. I've actually had this conversation with, some of my coworkers and other soldiers. Yes, the nightlife was fun, the snowboarding was fun and all that, but and this is a veteran thing, so if there's veterans on here, whatever, you kind of get this. They say the grass isn't always greener. What I remember the most looking back on my time in Germany was how amazing the unit was and how they trained, what their camaraderie was high, their esprit de corps was high. So looking back, that's always been my litmus test of units. And I got really lucky because that was my first unit. We hear stories of veterans going to one unit because of their storied history, etc. And maybe they don't have the greatest of experience. Since I had nothing to compare it to, I went there and I got right into a very strict op tempo, lots of training, which, looking back was kind of painful, lots of time in the range, lots of time in the field, but it created a healthy and it really cemented my foundation of Army learning and the Army learning model, and what it was like to be a teammate and what it was like to be counted on and have others go to bat for you and look out for one another. And the single soldiers were in the barracks and the married soldiers were off base, and that whole dynamic. So yes, it spoiled me in a way, but not in the way that some people may assume, that it was fun to drink and have a good old time. It really supplanted the fact that I loved the Army at that point and just liked the structure. It just was such a great team that it was really hard to replicate. It has been replicated in my career, but not every time, and definitely not every unit in every circumstance.
Mm-hmm. And that's an incredible experience to have, just such a good command and environment that you're working in, because even if your second command doesn't offer that, that the Army's capable of that, and it kind of encourages you to keep going. And when you see that good leadership, it motivates you to be that leader wherever you end up. So
yeah,
I think
I even look back. There's one guy that I remember in particular. He was a sergeant first class in E7, Sergeant First Class Jackson, and I still remember to this day. He was in another platoon. I remember looking at this gentleman and thinking, like, that is the absolute epitome of a senior non-commissioned officer. The way he carried himself, the way he was dressed, his candor, his demeanor, everything. He just walked the walk, talked the talk. And I will never forget looking back on those days and seeing him and just setting an example every second of every day. Sure, he's a fallible human, but what I saw as a young Joe was just an absolute role model, just someone just to look up to and to model myself after. And I see a lot of those similarities in that unit. There's a couple of other cast of characters in my past that were from that time in Germany that I remember as being super impactful, not only on me as a human being, but as a soldier and eventually a leader, you know?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so where did you end up going after that?
Yeah, after that, I got stationed at Fort Hood. You know, being a generator mechanic now, it's like, you know, luck of the draw. So where am I going to go? Well, I go to 27 Cav. My Cav boys, as you can see, represent behind me. Gary Owen, 27. So I went there, and I was in the headquarters unit there, the infantry unit, and then I spent a bunch of time there, deployed with them, then got reassigned to the headquarters of the brigade there at Fort Hood, and then that eventually led up to you know, 9/11. Then a little bit after that, you know, I transitioned into the reserve system.
Okay, and what was behind that decision to go reserves?
It, because I had joined the Army so young, and I had really learned a lot. I felt like not only did I get trial by fire just in the discipline and rank and file and structure of, you know, the organization, but now I felt really ready to take a lot of that structure and a lot of those lessons learned into the reserve side, right? I was gonna, like, hey, maybe now I'll go to college and do things like that. And that's really what ultimately led to, you know, getting off of active duty and joining the reserve. The downfall, like I'm sure other veterans on here and others that we know, I don't want to say I immediately regretted it, because that would not be a fair statement. I immediately looked back and wondered if I would have stayed, of course, you know, if I'd have stayed active duty. As I was transitioning into my reserve unit, when I got to the reserve unit is when I looked back and thought, oh, you know, this is way different. It's a complete change. And I actually thought about this today when I was here in the yard. You know, I know a lot of your chats here talk about like military transitioning, and it kind of dawned on me today when I was on the mower, of all things, that the unique thing about an Army reservist or a reservist, I can't speak for all, but Army reservists coming from active duty, then to Army Reserve, up to like current, like me now, is we have a lot of transitions. We don't have a clean transition from active to out, or active to IRR, to active to reserve, etc. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I got into the reserve system, immediately thought maybe I should have stayed, started working, started going to school, and then shortly after that was, you know, propelled into getting onto, you know, cutting my teeth in the NP Corps. NPs lead the way. Sergeant Bailey, I see you on there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And going off to my first combat deployment, 2005.
And that was through reserves, right? Or
Yes.
not yet? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because, you know, I was comparing the getting out of the military to divorce earlier this week. And that's kind of like, you know, going from the reserves, it's almost like, okay, we're seeing other people, but we're still committed to each other, almost sort of thing. It's complicated, right? And then,
Yeah.
you know, identity wise, which I want to get into later, more about how you and your, you know, everyone eventually transitions. But that must be, you know, kind of confusing, because it's like I want to move on, but I still have this part-time commitment. So what was that deployment like through the reserve unit?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot of tons of reserve and National Guard soldiers have deployed, you know. So first and foremost, thanks to everyone that's done that, like me, and all the active. Since we're talking about deployments now, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank everyone that's watching for their service, whether you deployed or not, since we're now getting into the part that everyone likes to talk about per se. But it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. It was long. It was just shy of a year and a half in the SUNY Triangle, which was, for those that know, it's a really great neighborhood. A lot of activities, a lot of cool, fun things to do. All joking aside, you know, it's a pretty dangerous area. But the Here's the thing I liked about, if I look back as a whole without going into the nitty gritty of, every day, I met some people there that I still talk to and I still run and gun with every day. So that's amazing. Even as reservists, it's awesome. I just ran into a couple of them last week, which is awesome. But the thing I really liked about it, and this is why I think a lot of veterans, like me in some cases and others, why we seek out these deployments or these mobilizations, because it so closely mirrored the tempo and everything about active duty that it was kind of easy for me. Other reservists I could see, I don't want to say struggle because I can't tell their story, but I could see that some service members were maybe not as used to the tempo or the day in, day out, and the barracks and the cots and the planes and, all those things that go with it. Whereas I'd been very used to that. And again, I'd cut my teeth in a unit that was all about, I had deployed with them, I'd been all over the place already. Mm-hmm. So I fell right into a real nice groove with that unit for the combat deployment. And it really, it was like second nature to me. Sure, we did a lot of cool things and had a lot of fun and did a lot of great missions. But looking back, it was really what I needed to help me transition, not just structurally, but mentally into the reserve system, which just a brief little liner note here. It was really that deployment that kind of solidified my belief in that there is only one standard. There is only one way to do all these things that we do in the Army. A lot of times, as you see, there's people, especially that are in different compos now, like reserve or guard, as opposed to active duty. Sometimes you hear phrases like, well, it's the reserve, so why are you doing it this way? Or National Guard doesn't do it that way. Only active duty gets to do X, Y, and Z. And this was not the case with this deployment and other deployments that I've been on as a reservist. So this, just to speak more of like how I am the way I am now, is that it really solidified the fact that the Army asks us to do a pretty serious job. And when the bullets are flying down range or whatever it is you're doing, whether you're on a boat or you're in a helicopter, an Osprey, like those bullets don't know if you're part-time. Those bullets don't know if you're a reserve soldier or a reserve sailor, right? So it's incumbent upon all of us to meet that Army standard when the nation calls on us to do that. And I think there's plenty of opportunities for us to do that. And again, that's why I'm so passionate about senior leaders and Army leaders just being better, especially now as a reservist, because I think a lot of times they get it in their heads that they don't have the time or the space to be a good, dedicated leader for those younger soldiers because we only do it once in a while. And I want to flip that on its head and be like, hey, it's more important that you do it now because you have less time, not the other way around. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum.
No, I was enjoying it, and as I can see from the comments, everyone really appreciated that, and that's so true. And there's so many, if you want to find an excuse, you're gonna find one. And I just think it's almost kind of embarrassing to have that excuse when you have people who are depending on you. You're setting the tone for so many people, and to offer that as an excuse is just unacceptable. So I love that. I think like what you're doing and promoting leadership and holding people accountable, it's so important. And especially in the military, I think a lot of people probably on the live could agree, like we've all dealt with a toxic leader or someone who is just power hungry. And it's just, I wish someone would have stepped in, or someone that was in charge of them would have said something. So
yeah, that's a great point you make there too, Jenna, is, toxic leadership. Everybody talks about it. It's been in the military forever. It's had a bunch of different, names and different things, but you're exactly right. When you make excuses, and look, let me go back and just preface it by saying we're all fallible humans. We all make mistakes and we all make excuses, right? So let's just say I'm not here to say that I'm perfect. Anybody that's on here that knows me knows that I'm definitely not perfect. But the one thing that I pride myself in is that I'm going to keep going and I'm going to do my best as much as I can, as long as I can, especially for those that I'm so honored to be in charge of, right? So if I only have 2 days to be involved with their life intimately on the military side, then I'm going to try everything in my power to make those 2 days as impactful as I can with whatever natural constraints I may have over me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. The toxic leadership thing is, I think we're getting away from it. I know there's still pockets of it. One of my friends who I talk to on here all the time is dealing with it. And, it's still there, and I wish it didn't exist. And it's going to take, people like you and me and others that are strong and committed to doing the right thing, and to speak the voice to leaders that just don't want to do the right thing for their own self-interest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so I kind of want to speed up a little bit into what your day in, day out, what your career looks like now, with kind of having one leg in and one leg out. As yeah.
Yeah, that's I wrote that note down, the transition. So currently, on the Army side, I work as the operations sergeant major for my military police battalion. What that would normally consist of is, they say the commercials, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. But pretty much even during the global war on terrorism era up until current, we find ourselves doing a lot more than just 1 weekend a month, whether it's a training conference, training at schools we have to go to, et cetera. But then when I'm not doing that, prior to moving over to Tennessee, just for a little backstory, I worked as a executive protection agent for a billionaire family for just shy of a decade prior to moving out to Tennessee. So while I was doing a bunch of Army stuff there in California, and the units I was in California, I was doing that sort of work. When I transitioned to Tennessee, I had worked as a director of security for a community center. I started doing a little bit of bodyguarding, on and off again here. And then after my last deployment, I came and got offered a job, or kind of sought a job as a training specialist, as a military technician. So what that is I'm a currently serving Army reservist, and I'm also a government civilian. Most recently, I took the position as the supervisory staff administrator for my brigade, which is the head civilian for the brigade that monitors, admin, payroll. It's very administratively heavy. The one benefit about the job not the one benefit, the benefit I think I like the most about this job is that it gives me a chance to speak on behalf of my brigade commander, an 06, and it allows me to help build culture, foster great environments, promote communication and teamwork, leadership. It really has put me in a position where I have the ability to listen to everybody in the brigade, do what I can to affect what change I can in the brigade. And yeah. So then I'm basically, some days I'm doing Army stuff as a soldier, and every Monday through Friday I'm doing Army stuff as a civilian.
Yeah, so it's pretty, on and off with, changing your hats like that. That's kind of a unique position that it is a unique position that you're in. And I know you ask this question a lot, but retirement, it's on the horizon. I'm not saying it's even in the next 5 years for you, because I know you're going strong, but eventually we all do have to transition. And you being in the uniform for 26 years and counting, have you thought about what that's going to be like in terms of identity of who you are?
Well, my wife and I just, hey, Blake, thanks, brother. Appreciate you, brother. My wife and I, let me just throw a liner note in there. My wife is an amazing human being. I love her. A lot of people that know me that are on here know my wife. She's amazing. And why I want to make sure I bring this up is because she has steadfastly supported me in everything that I've wanted to do in my career, which leads me to the conversation about retirement. You and I talked the other day, Jenna, and yes, I know eventually I will have to retire. Which, the way it works now, I'll have to then retire from my civilian job if I still have that. So I can look you dead in the camera right now. Am I ready right now to transition into full civilian where I don't have anything to do with the Army? Absolutely not. I am not mentally ready. I am not physically ready. Financially, I think we're okay. But just thinking about not doing it every day in some capacity, whether it's civilian military capacity or military capacity, I am not ready for that. But here's what I am ready for. I am ready to continue these conversations about how we can promote good, healthy habits and create leaders of tomorrow. So now this is my time with whatever I have left in my career. I feel so passionate about giving back what I can to empower leaders to take my job, to talk about the things that we all think are important, and to lead by example, like I think I've done in a lot of cases. So I could say that I feel very fulfilled in having conversations like this with you. And again, Jenna, thank you so much for this. I'm honored for this opportunity to talk. And I like the fact that we're talking to veterans about these things, because my story is not unique, but it's mine and I own it. And I want to see if the little bit of time left I have in uniform, I can just pour into others like they have to me. So to bring that full circle, I think I'll know when it's time to retire. I think I'll know when I have filled what I think are all my duties and responsibilities, because now there are very few academics, very few awards, very few of those things. Sure, a war kicks off, that's a different story. But with everything now, my main focus is pouring into others like they have to me. So I feel like I can do that for a while. And as long as I continue to be blessed to have dialogue like this with other veterans and other people, I can always pour something into those young service members, whether it's active duty, reserve, etc. So I'm not ready now, Jenna. I'm not ready to give it up. But I think when that time comes, I think I will have positioned myself mentally. I've got a good group of friends and a tribe that we're all together in this, and we connect, and we talk the same, we think the same, and you know, those are the people that I count on to battle with and have dialogue with. And you know, I think I'll know when it's time to retire.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to let you know I had a great uncle who did 36 years in the Navy. So technically, you could have 10 more years.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. Well, just on that note, just on that note, we see in the Army, we see a lot of leaders where our opinions of that leader is that they should retire. We've all been there: Army,
Oh.
Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force. We've all been there. I'm sure
Mhm.
at some point someone will say that about me too, just because that's just the narrative. That's just what
Of
people
course.
say. But we all say this, and I believe this to be true, wholeheartedly true. If I can no longer, be relevant, if I no longer have the ability to be adaptable and lead with empathy, and oh, there's my wife who jumped on. She says she's guessing I have 14 more years, not 10. If I can no longer, lead with empathy and be flexible and communicate clearly up and down the chain of command, and make smart, give smart advice on commanders that are making decisions, I have enough people in my circle that will keep me on the clear azimuth, and me to them as well. I feel like if any of those start to falter a little bit, then that's when it'll be time, because now I'll be degrading that interaction with soldiers or that unit because, my antiquated way of thinking or my rigidity. So because of those reasons, I'm very hyper aware of my place in my organization, and I try to remain hyper aware of my place in the military. And I know that we're all replaceable. So as long as I can get to that fine line where I'm still making an impact and people are still reaching out to me and we're still having great dialogue, then I think that we're gonna go. Maybe my wife is right. Maybe 14 years is more in line.
Yes. Yeah, and someone just took the words out of my mouth. They mentioned self-awareness, and wow, that's incredible that you can have that perspective, and just you really have a good read on the impact you have of the environment you're in, and on those you're leading. And another thing I'm picking up on is that you find value in what you can do for others. And even in your bio, it says servant. And I think that makes, you find your purpose outside of yourself. And that's just such a great attitude to have when you do transition, because, just getting outside your head, and so many of us veterans, I know I did, I isolated and I just focused on myself, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that. I'm just saying when you close your world in, um, you forget that we are meant to be a part of a community, and opening yourself up and serving others is really how we thrive. So I think, and you're already thinking about it too, so that's great. And so let's kind of get into it, because we got 10 minutes left. I was telling you, this flies by, and
Mhm.
I wanna hear more about how you started Dash Legacy and what you're doing here on Instagram.
Yeah, I love telling that story too because, and I'll keep it short, I promise. But so when I was hiking Cocoa Head, well, let's go back. One day I heard Sergeant Stahl, what's up, battle? You're my battle. Um, I I heard someone say this speech that said dash, and they said dash is the space in between your life and your death. And I just kind of put that in my brain housing group, and I just kind of went on about my day. One day I was hiking in Hawaii when I was TDY, temporary duty, and I was updating my Samsung app to like track my steps and all that, and it asked for a name, and I thought, wow, that dash is kind of the time on Earth, and how do I want to be remembered? Like, well, how we all being remembered is called legacy. So I just kind of made up that name in my Samsung thing. When I came home from that trip, I showed my wife, and she's like, "Hey, what's Dash Legacy?" And I kind of explained it to her. That's a representation of the space in between your birth year and your death year, and all that time, every single thing that you do and everything you say on your earthly walk here is only represented by that dash.
Mm-hmm.
I've even taken it a step further. I was saying on the other show that I was lucky enough to be on also, that I've even had dreams where I've kind of like looked down at my headstone and wondered like what was going to be inscribed under that. Like, so basically my earthly walk here, the more I was doing and what I was doing and how I was impacting was helping to cement what that was going to be. That was going to be husband, soldier, father, friend, mentor. Like, it was undecided in my dream what the little writing was on the headstone. And it just kind of stuck. And then my wife, again, I love her to death. She's on social media. She's got a decent, like a way bigger following than me. She's been doing it a while. She's just a saint in social work and adoptive foster services, all these things. And she was like, "Oh, you want to start, talking to other people? Start your Instagram. Just do it. I'll show you. I'll show you how to do it." She just propelled me and pushed me. And I just started, and I like to talk around the house, and I like to engage with others. And so I thought, I don't know, I don't have Facebook. I'm definitely not going to go to TikTok. That's my own personal choice. So I thought, hey, I already had an Instagram. Let's do Dash Legacy, and let's try to build this culture, which we already know. I just like the name. And it's been really impactful. And a lot of people have reached out to me and said they like the name. And so it's really just how we want to be remembered on this earth, and what legacy are we living with a cute name like Dash Legacy. And 79 is, the year I was born. So nothing super, the impactful part is how we're living our life each day and what impact we have on others. That's how the name started. And what I'm trying to do is just, I said before, I'm not a hard skills master, maybe in some things, but I really have come into this thing where I feel like my true gift, or maybe even my calling, if I probably have to work through some of that, but maybe my calling is these interactions and these connections and these relationships that I'm in with community, with my family, with my soldiers and others. And I just hope that, like I said on an earlier video, if I would have had somebody like me or similar to me giving a 10 or 12-year-old Grant Smith advice, I would want that. I would also want somebody like me as a senior leader now in the military to talk and interact in ways with soldiers, to let them know not only that we care and we want them as part of our team, regardless of how young or old they are and what experiences they have, but even old guys like me can be adaptable, so we can form the next great foundation of leadership that will be doing their version of Dash Legacy 10, 20, 30 years from now. I don't just want to create a bunch of people that can shoot well and move well and communicate well. Those are all skills that any decent person can teach somebody. But that communication, that wherewithal, that competence, that that, just tenacity, that just all of it, that's what I want to help push out to others. And I've been really blessed, and I've had so many great leaders and mentors and coaches and counsel that have guided me along the way, my family, that I just want to pour back into everybody that I can. If they can get one small piece of something that I did or said, and they don't have to live a terrible experience like I did, or they can help others in ways that maybe I wasn't able to, that's why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. What you're creating isn't just for today or for you, it's for, generations that are yet to come. And I think that is so cool. That is really awesome. And so we are coming up on time already. And I love the questions, guys. I apologize that we haven't gotten to to hardly any of them because we got a lot to get through. But is there anything else I could help you share tonight, or anything that we missed, or maybe you wanted to touch on? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I've got some notes here, and this is something that I tell my kids, and I think it's really, really pertinent. I don't know if others that know me may have heard this before, maybe not, but this is just my take on it. It's like my closing thought. So please take this. Please, please, please take this. It'll be real quick. I promise, Jenny. So in certain movies when you watch and you see like an old man or an old woman go to like an old filing cabinet, and it's like dark and dusty, and they're looking for something, right? They're looking for a file. A police officer comes in, or a Department of Children's Services comes in and looking for a kid. You guys get the image, right? So you're looking in this dusty old filing cabinet, right? When they finally get to that filing cabinet, that section, let's say S, right? And they get through there and they're looking for Grant Smith. They're looking for the file for Grant Smith or Jenna. And there's a bunch of people waiting for it, and they're filing through it, and they pull the filing thing out, and they look at it, and it's just a piece of paper with some random data on it. I'm not going to be that file. And I don't want anybody else to be that file. I do not want the culmination of our lives to be a dusty file in a dusty drawer, in a dusty basement that no one's put any thought into in 30, 40, 50 years, or 1 year, or 5 minutes. I want us to get after it. I want us to live our best full life. And I want to get out of that filing cabinet, and I want everyone to show this world our walk here on earth. I want everybody to live it to their fullest and show everybody the amazing work that God has done in each unique one of us. That's what I want for everybody.
I love that. That's a great message, and you're never going to regret doing your best or being your best, and especially with the dash, that's just such a great reminder of not only our mortality, but just how short our time here really is. Whew. We're really getting deep, you guys. I love it. And another thing I wanted to bring up is that you're coming up on your 1-year anniversary, right?
Yeah, my 1-year anniversary of the Dash legacy. There's the growth, as we know, has been. We talked about this the other day. It's been a little bit slow, like in the algorithm world, but that's not my world. But much like anything else, this is not a shameless plug to follow me and not be all about it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I like the interactions that we have, and every time we get to cast a net and bring more people in, we get to meet each other, we get to interact, and we get to use social media in a really positive way where we can reach out and impact others in a positive way, or be a sounding board. So as I'm coming up on my year, I'm getting pretty close to 1,000 followers. And I look at that now because the battalion that I'm the operations sergeant major for is, about 800. So it's right around the same number of like impact. So it feels like very comfortable and a very good way to interact. So I'm just hoping that it'll continue to grow, because I've only done a few of these, and I can tell you I have learned so much more from interactions from people like you, Jenna, and my friend Tyler, my good friend Zimbalist, my buddy Brent, who jumped on. He's like my counsel, my mentor, one of them. I get so much from everybody on here, and every time I get the For You page and I get something new, I write it down. It invokes, gets my brain moving. So that's why I want to just cast a wide net, just so we can continue to interact with each other and reach out and touch as many veterans and as many people as we can. So yeah, here coming up on October. So if you want to throw me a follow, let's cast the net out wide. I hate to do the shameless plug, but if you feel so inclined, jump on there, tell your buddies about Dash Legacy, tell your buddies about the Millennial Veteran. We're getting after it.
Yes, yes, no, and that was the last thing that we had to cover was I wanted you to plug everything because give Grant a follow, help him get to 1,000. I mean that's a huge milestone, and that's something that took me a long time. So I can respect that completely. I want to thank everyone who is here on the live. I really appreciate you all being here and with your comments. It's been so fun to read them and motivating. I know Grant agrees. And if you're listening to the replay or you're listening to this on the radio, I hope you enjoyed this awesome conversation with Grant. And finally, Grant, thank you. I really appreciate you being here and coming on Vet Chats.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenna. Again, thanks to all the vets out there. Thank you for setting this up. I love what you're doing. I was, as you know, we talked. I was so tickled when you reached out to me the other day. So again, I'm completely honored and humbled to be able to have this conversation on your platform here. And again, it's been my honor to be here, and I really appreciate your time, Jenna. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great week.
You too.
Bye, everyone.